project manager's story.
Zach is a project manager and proud of it. He feels privileged to be a member of a well-trained and highly skilled profession. After all, without project managers, very little would get done. But despite all this, Zach is not a happy man. His sense of achievement is overshadowed by some well-known statistics. And whichever way you look at them, the statistics all tell the same depressing story. Most projects are doomed to failure. In fact, only 1 out of every 8 projects is a success, and almost a third are cancelled before completion.
Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, they go down to the down. They enchant all the ladies and see all the scenes with their up to the up, and they're down to the down. Up and down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up and down, they're frightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Spirit of Mackenzie channel. The ongoing saga of me getting this experimental home-built seaplane into the air. So, according to my task list and schedule, I'm working my way through the items I identified I've got to get done before this plane can take to the air, hopefully, I insist on, this summer. But before I get into the next job, let me talk about my hat. Some of you may recognize the South African flag. I had the great fortune about 10 years ago of working for a year and a half in South Africa. It was a great time. The project was fun, met a lot of great people, and I got to do some interesting things in my out of work time, including learning to fly. That's where I learned to fly at a rather advanced age, and I had a great time doing that. I got my what they call a national pilot's license first. That's equivalent to, say, a recreational pilot's license in North America. And then I went on and got my private pilot license in Cessna 150 and Cessna 172s. But what I learned to fly on was the Phantom two-place microlight. And at the flying school in Nelspruit had these Phantoms, but also just up the road in Hazy View was a sort of flying school and a place I could take tourists out for a flip, as they call it there, around to look at the countryside in these Bantams, microlights. This was Aviation Adventures. Wally and his wife were the co-owners and pilots, and they also did the checkout for me when I was learning to fly. But anyway, flying is great thing in South Africa. Wide open spaces, lots of big farms with grass strips, game farms, great things to do. Good place to fly. And just a tip of the hat to the pilots and the people of South Africa. And you'll notice on this hat, which kind of looks a bit like a General Rommel Africa Corps style tank commander's hat, the flat top. It's great when you put your earphones on. You don't have an annoying button to press down into your skull. Anyway, enough said about my hat and South Africa. What are we looking at here today? Well, fixing the ailerons outboard gaps. Okay, I haven't looked forward to this because I don't know what I'm going to do. So let's just get into it. So what is the problem here with the ailerons? Well, right there, you can see the gap between the outboard end of this aileron and the wing. And most places, the gap is a little over 1/8, maybe 3/16 of an inch wide. But as you come down to the trailing edge, it gets tighter and tighter, to the extent that when I move the aileron up and make it fully up, it clashes a little bit with the wing, and of course is tight to move. And that's not acceptable, I'm told. Perhaps you can see now that the aileron is fully up and it's clashing right at the end here. And I've got to fix that. Now, that's got me scratching my head. Perhaps what I can do is I could move the aileron hinge, either where it mounts against the wing up here. If I could move it inboard a little bit, or I can move the aileron itself on the hinge and on the trailing edge. That would do the trick. But I really don't know how to do that. Perhaps by slotting the holes, that would work. But that means machining that aluminum block hinge. And not just one, but two, three of them. Another approach, and I think what I'm going to do, is just try to remove this interference point, either here on the wing, which is fiberglass covered by fabric, or here, which is inside is an aluminum frame, and then I can just repair the surface after I maybe grind it back, cut it back somehow. So my first approach is going to be to try to file this part down here that actually interferes with the wing, and then I'll repair it by putting new fabric and tape on if I can.
Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, they go down to the down.
However, fixing the damage of the fix could be the bigger job. So after some thinking and looking at the gap at the end of the aileron again, especially on this side, the port side, I think the gap is too small. It's too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the aileron 1/8 of an inch or so that way, because I know I have a thumb width gap at this end of the aileron. So I've taken the aileron off, and there you can see these three hinges. They're kind of a odd looking hinge. That's because this is a freeze aileron, which kind of offsets the pivot point of the aileron, and it's bolted here to the back trailing edge of the wing, and it's also got some little rivets here. So what I have to do is, for each of these three hinges, I have to take out the rivets, take out the bolt, and then what I'm going to do is put this in my drill press and just slot the hole a little bit so that the whole hinge can move 1/8 of an inch that way. It looks like there's lots of meat on here, so it shouldn't be weakening the hinge at all. So while I was away last week for work, Miguel took these 6 or 5 of the 6 hinge pieces down to a fabrication shop and had them slightly slot the holes, 3 to the left and 3 to the right, so that when we mount them, the ailerons on each side will shift about 1/8 of an inch towards the center of the plane. So I think I've finally figured out what I have to do here. Now that I got the hole slotted for each of the 3 hinges on each of the 2 ailerons, I also have to reposition the rivets as well. So as this hinge slides to the center of the plane by about 1/8 inch, the rivets also have to move over by 1/8 inch. But what I've found is that the rivets that were specified in the manual are really not long enough for this 1/2 inch thick piece. So I'm going to drill about a 1/4 inch hole into the rivet hole, about a 1/4 inch deep. That will get the rivet further in and make sure I get a good grip on the back of the rivet to this trailing edge of the wing and to the hinge. So there you can see the hinge has been shifted 1/8 of an inch towards the center of the plane, to the left. So having hung the aileron back onto the 3 hinges in their relocated position, I've got the clearance I want at this end, about 1/8 inch, and the bolts that are used to fix the aileron to the trailing end of the hinge, because it's a rotating joint, these are drilled AN3 bolts, and because they're drilled you use a castle nut or a castellated nut, and a pin to ensure that the nut does not back off.
That's all, folks.